everyone, welcome back to my channel Learn Smart Coding. In this video, we're going to see how to prefetch the data using the route resolvers. For a user-friendly experience, we can retrieve the data required for displaying in a component template before routing to that component. That is what we're going to see today. Route resolvers are one of the important interview questions that have been asked in many important companies. So let's take a look. So before we dive into the topic, let's take a look at the repository from where you can get the entire code. So this is the Angular for Beginner course, and in the same course, I've added this as a separate topic, and you can see that in a separate branch, and the branch name is basically the resolver example branch. So in this, the couple of files that is modified for the specific demo, and whole source code is available in this branch. You can always feel free to go there and get it, and that's free. That's a public repository. And not only that, in this you can see other repositories. If you're interested, go take a look at the repository and also the videos. Now let's dive into the topic. So how is this resolver going to solve our problem? When a user navigates to a component with a template that requires data, the page first appears mostly blank or with only a minimum static data text, right? This happens due to the delay in downloading the data required for the page. It could be due to the delay from the API side or from a lower or a slower connection, or it could be that a lot of data is coming back. So we can prevent this partial page display by downloading the data for a component before routing to that component with route resolvers. There are several benefits that we will get by using this prefetching of data to our component. The first one, prefetching prevents display of a blank or a partial page while waiting for a data to be retrieved. We can handle data retrieval errors before routing to that component. For example, if they are trying to go to a particular page with a particular ID, we will end up getting 404. We cannot display any data over the page, right? So we can prevent certain amount of errors, and we can see what we can do if we get into that problem. We can instead navigate to an error page when such kind of error happens, instead of staying on that detail page and then showing nothing on the page. So we can do all those things. Now let's understand some basics of this resolver, and then we will straight away go to the coding. Prefetching data for a route using a route resolver requires 3 steps. The first step is to build a route resolver. This is basically a typical Angular service that retrieves the data needed for our component. The next is we add the resolver property to the route configuration and assign it to the route resolver. The router executes the resolver service and retrieves the data before activating the associated component. And we will take a look how it works. Since the route now has the data that our component needs, we just need to do some association onto the component to read its data from the activated route service. And then we use a snapshot to read the data from the activated route service. If we don't expect the resolver to get a different data while staying on the current page, then what we can do is we can use the observable on that data. Now we know the basic process. Let's jump into the first step, creating a route resolver. So I've taken a same example of Angular for Beginners course. So in this, what we're going to do is there is a component called food item details. We're going to see how we will apply the resolver. So first let's create a file called food menu resolver service. Now we are going to create a food resolver service. To make the service behave like a route resolver, we implement the resolve interface. Notice that this interface is generic. This is to say that it uses a generic parameter to define the types of the data it retrieves, right? And then since we want the resolver to retrieve the food menu, we import our food menu interface. We then implement the resolve interface. We must define a resolve method. That method takes in an activated route snapshot and a router state snapshot. The activated route snapshot contains information about the currently activated route. We used this snapshot earlier to retrieve the data from the route parameter. The router state snapshot represents the state of the application router at that moment in time. The router state snapshot is a tree of activated route snapshot. The resolve method can return an observable or a promise or just the data. So we will keep only the observable here. We created a constructor and injected the food menu service. Now we create a constant called ID, and we retrieve the ID from the route params. So if you type route dot param maps, which is a parameter, and then by using the get method and pass in the route parameter name, we will be able to get the ID that was passed to this route. And this is going to be a string. So let's convert this into a number. So number of this will return a number. Now in the return, we are going to directly call the food menu service and call that API method, pass in this ID. That's it. Very simple, right? So this is going to give us the data. Now before we put this resolver into the router module, we need to handle the error. There could be an error that can occur. So for that, let's first bring in a different interface called food menu so that we can pass in the error information also along with the data in the route. So for that, I create an interface called food menu resolved, and in that there are two properties. The first property will become the food menu, and this property could be a food menu or it could be a null. For now, let's keep it that way. And then the second one is the error, and it's an optional parameter, so I have put a question mark, and it could be anything that we can return. Now coming back here, we have to change this food menu into food menu resolved because we are going to return a different object now. In that object, the data of food menu is already encapsulated. Now after changing all the places, yes, it's going to throw some error. That's fine. So what we are going to do is we're going to check some conditions. So if is not a number is an inbuilt function. By using that, we're finding out the ID is a number or not. If it is not a number, the statement is true. We write some message like food menu ID was not a number, and then we pass in what is that ID, and then we will print this in a console. In a typical real life application, instead of doing it in a console, a real logging will be there, but for a moment we will keep it as a console. Now and then I return a off statement of rxjs which will return an observable of food menu resolved object. And here what we are going to do is we are going to go through a pipe which is also a RHAS operator. So by using pipe, we can transform some data. So I will pass into the pipe and then do a map. Map, what it will do is, this is also another operator. So we can map a particular property and then return the data. So we are saying food menu property goes with the data that's coming in, which is the food menu, FM in short. And then I pass along after map, what we can do is we can do a error handling. So we will apply a catch error. Catch error is another property. So let's bring in the map namespace and then the catch error namespace. You can see both namespace been added, and catch error will go with the error, and once we get the error, we log some message and we also put it into our console. So we are going to write a message and we call it as retrieval error, and then we pass along the error that we returned from the API, and then we will do a console.error and pass in that message object so that you can see what error has been logged. And then we return a null of food menu property along with error property. We will populate the error that we retrieved. Okay, let's format the code. All right, this is resolved. Now the next step is to add this food menu resolver into our router module. So let's go back to the menu module where our router is configured. So I go to this menu module, and then there's another one called menu routing module. Here you can see we can add a resolver in the router as we discussed, and we pass along the resolver. So here food menu item is itself is a data property where the data will come and sit, and we're saying it is associated with the food menu resolver. Alright, so when this router kicks in, it will go to that resolver, find out the data from the params and retrieve the data and then pass along the data. We're going to see that in the demo. Now coming back to this component, we need to do some little tweak here. So what we are going to do is I'm going to add a property called food menu resolve property, because the data that we are going to receive is going to be in this format, and in that we can always retrieve the required data from the food menu property. For that, in the constructor, how you will retrieve is using this .route .snapshot.data. Inside the data, you will have to pass the name of the property that you gave there, that is food menu item, and this one will retrieve the data. This is the one which will hold the data. Now what we have to do is we need to do a casting and then convert the data and put it into our default food menu property, because the food menu property is what is used across this template. Okay, Now go back there where we were already retrieving the data. So I'm going to comment that out so that we don't need to call anything after coming to this component. Now all set, I'm going to put an alert statement to show you how it looks. So it's building. Let's take a look at the demo. This is the application. Here is what you retrieve all the data here, right? So different menu items. When you click on a particular menu item is what we're going to see. So we'll open up the developer console and see how the calls are retrieved in the network tab. So I clicked on that, you saw there was a call went out, and then once I got the 200 response, only then the router was able to go and show me to the page. So earlier in the demo you might have seen there was an empty space always coming until unless we get the data. So in order to simulate this, actually I've put a 1.5 seconds delay on my API. That's why you can literally see what's going on here. So every time you navigate to a different property, so if you go to the menu and then click on any of the food item menu, right, it first retrieves the data and then it gets back. So I removed the alter statement. You can see the template was shown only after the data was retrieved. Very nice. This is how the resolver is going to help us. It's not going to show us any empty page, empty data without any template. Instead of just waiting for the data, it will display the route only when the data is retrieved. You can come here and always add many resolver, not only one resolver. If you have categories, if you have anything else that is retrieving the data, you can always add there. Thanks for watching. If you like my video, don't forget to subscribe my channel, like it, share it, comment it, and never forget to click on the bell icon.